Hobbes believed in absolute royal power. Any challenge to royal power, he believed, brought society a little bit closer to that chaotic state of nature. And that's what he saw. That's how he interpreted his own period of history. That's what he saw had happened in his own day, in the decade prior to the book's publication. The English Civil War was about lots of things. It was about Parliament versus King. It was also a religious war. It was part of that deluge of religious wars that had swept through Europe um, after the Reformation and the split of Western Christianity into Protestant and Catholic. And the King Charles, was thought to be a little bit too close to Catholics for Parliament's liking, and Parliament challenged the king and wanted more control, and the king said nope. And it started a long, bloody civil war, unprecedentedly bloody in English history. The 16th century discovery of gunpowder made a big difference to how wars were fought and the damage that they could do. And in 1649, finally, the king was executed. There have been many regicides throughout history. Kings are always ready targets for political anger for obvious reason, but this was exceptional. The historically unprecedented thing about this execution was that it was preceded by a trial. It was the first time in human history that a head of state was ever executed as the result of a legal process. And he was charged and prosecuted and found guilty of tyranny. And he refused to offer a defense, but he said he was above the law. He contested the legitimacy of the court itself. And Hobbes would agree. He lamented the war and lamented the execution. But when the king had been toppled and executed, Hobbes, without any feelings of hypocrisy, gave his full support and loyalty to the new power. What was important was that the reigning power should go unchallenged, whatever it was. That's what the social contract required. In some ways, Hobbes was a pacifist. He's not usually thought of as such, but peace was his overriding motivation. It was the principal political virtue in his philosophy. Putting him alongside Gandhi and John Lennon, as I've done here, is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but he obviously didn't think of peace in the same kind of terms as John Lennon did. Pacifist is perhaps the wrong word because there wasn't anything passive about the way he hoped to achieve peace. It wasn't the kind of hippie notion of peace as allied with love, peace and love. You didn't end the violence inherent in human society through love, but only by monopolizing violence in the hands of the state. And we've been faced with similar questions in our own day. In 2003, the US invaded Iraq and toppled the president, Saddam Hussein. And he was put on trial, like King Charles, in a special tribunal. And like King Charles, Saddam did not plead his innocence. He contested the court's legitimacy. And in turn, they questioned his legitimacy to rule. And the court eventually found him guilty and handed him over to a Shia militia. And he was hung at the gallows in 2006. And the story has it, this may not be true, but the story has it, that his last words on the gallows were said in response to the militiamen chanting, "Burn in hell." And he replied, "The hell that is Iraq." In other words, I'm not going to hell, I'm leaving hell. Hell is what Iraq has become without me in power. It's a very Hobbesian logic. He said previously to his American captors as Baghdad burned outside, "I could bring peace to this country in 1 hour. I would just need 45 minutes to shave and then 15 minutes to make a televised speech, and that would bring the country to peace." 45 minutes is quite a long time to spend shaving, but I think, like a lot of Arab men, he had quite quite a particular grooming routine. But you get the point. The hellishness of Saddam's regime was very real. Saddam's Iraq was famously brutal. His military commanders ordered rape. He gassed his own people. He and his family could murder, rape, and steal from citizens with complete impunity, and did. He burnt the country's oil wells, leading to horrendous ecological disaster. But the hellishness of Iraq, once he was toppled, the hellishness that followed in his wake was also very, very real. Getting rid of Saddam involved another kind of hell. The country was plunged into over a decade of civil war that is still ongoing. Hundreds of thousands have lost their lives, their homes, drinking water, electricity, etc. Iraq and neighboring Syria have come under the power of an unknowable mass of different militia representing different ethnic and religious groups. So I really want to ask you, which is worse? Which type of hell would you go for if given the choice? You can always choose, choose other, choose something else, but that isn't a choice that it seems any Iraqi citizen was ever given, or perhaps any 17th century English citizen was given. So which is it? I hope to discuss that when we meet.